guys, and welcome back to episode 19 of the In the Hub podcast, brought to you by Playbox Technology UK. In this week's episode, we speak to Gareth Jones, Head of Production Management at HBS. Gareth's career in broadcasting spans 20 years, working on some incredible events like the FIFA World Cup and the 2012 Olympic Games. If you do enjoy this episode, don't forget to give us a rating on Apple Podcasts, or drop us a follow over on Spotify. So Gareth, welcome to the In the Hub podcast. How are you today?
Thanks. I'm very well, thanks, Neil. Good to be with you.
Gareth, we're going to get straight into the questions then, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely fine.
Awesome. So Gareth, how did you actually get started in the broadcasting industry, and was it always a sure thing from the start?
Not really. I mean, I started my career post-school as a trainee accountant and for a printing firm. But after about a year of that, I decided it wasn't for me, and I always had a interest in film and television. So I looked for a course at the local college on video production and went and studied that for a number of years. But then, during that time, I kind of honed in on the broadcast aspects of it. And while studying, I also worked for Chelsea TV, which I guess was my kind of first foray into live sports broadcasting.
So, I mean, we're talking about Chelsea TV. Were you always quite keen to get involved in sports and live events and stuff like that then?
Oh, yeah, it's a passion for sure. I, I'm a big football fan, so it was always nice to kind of work in an industry or an environment that that's also one of your passions, although that can kind of have conflicting interests as well when it becomes your job. But let's see, after finishing college, I went to work for a broadcast rental company called Video Europe, back when they had facilities in Wandsworth. And my first job there was a studio runner, so it was grabbing people's lunches, and they used to paint the studios they had there from white to chroma key green or blue, and then back to white again. And it's not the kind of glamorous kind of entry into the broadcast industry you expect, but it's what a lot of people do. It's kind of it was an entry level kind of route in, and I kind of think from there, obviously developed to where I am now. But certainly started at the bottom.
Do you think it's important to kind of start at the bottom in whatever industry you're kind of involved in? So, getting used to that kind of gritty, everyday stuff.
I mean, there's no harm in studying, because, it does give you a grounding and a kind of wider knowledge of different aspects in the broadcast industry, not just what you end up doing, but it gives you appreciation for all the different, pre-production elements and research and even down to the logistics of operations. So there's no harm in studying, but eventually, unless you've got a decent entry level, you may well start at the bottom. And I think that's always a good way to kind of get a good grounding in the industry. And it depends on the company, really. If you've got into a company that there is room for growth and promotion, it's great. But if you're there and they just see you as a person to work and do a functional job with no room for or any opportunity to grow, then you could get quite stunted, which I have seen in certain companies I've worked for, but also to friends and colleagues, where sometimes a sideways step is needed to then move upwards. Yeah,
completely understand. So when was it that you actually started working with HBS?
I started work with HBS back in 2010 in the preparation for the FIFA World Cup in South Africa. So I came on board quite late in the project, and I used to look after the E&G project, so electric news gathering. We had, I think, 40 crews operating in South Africa. So it was kind of taking the different equipment that was to be provided to those crews and training them, and then managing the in the field operations.
So in terms of HBS, are there any particular events that you've worked on that stick out for you? Are there any particular highlights?
2010 in South Africa was definitely a career highlight. First World Cup that I'd worked on, and an event to that scale. It was very eye-opening. I'd worked on events before, but usually they are 1 or 2 day film premieres or music events. So when you see something that's on the scale of a FIFA World Cup, it kind of blows you away. And to be part of that is, it's an honour. It's very privileged, because obviously, there's a lot of people that kill for that opportunity. So definitely a big highlight. And I think, and again, working for a company like HBS, we're afforded a lot of good and interesting projects. For me, a recent highlight was working on the Rugby World Cup in Japan. That was an IGBS project. So IGBS is a joint venture between HBS and IMG. We were the host broadcaster for World Rugby, and I mean that event was fantastic, and it was been recognised with some awards for the coverage, which I'd say is a real testament to the hard work that World Rugby put in, the LOC and the numerous suppliers that were involved. It was a real team effort.
I guess just basing off of all of that and the many events that you've had the honour of working on, is there kind of like a single takeaway or piece of advice that you give to someone who's managing these key production aspects of live events? Is there a single most important thing you've learned throughout your career? Or
there's a couple, really. I mean, I think communication is clearly key with your client, within the organising committee. And I think everything is kind of achieved through detailed planning, but you've also got to expect the unexpected.
Yes,
these events, and then
very important,
and have a solid foundation that can cover when things don't go exactly as you expected or to plan. And I mean, I don't know, my own kind of philosophy and principle is, obviously to work hard, be nice to people where possible, whenever possible. And you've got to learn to love those long hours and long days. Otherwise, it's very challenging industry to work in.
Yeah, I think a key aspect you brought up there is just composure, isn't it? Because as much as you can plan for a particular outcome, there's always a loose screw that can go, and
Exactly. I mean, also in terms of everything that's designed, is about having some redundancy, not just in the equipment but the people as well. So yeah, we've had many things that have happened over the years that catch you by surprise, but none of them that's caused a real failure. So that's obviously something that you obviously always got to keep in mind.
So for anyone who might not know and is listening to this episode, could you kind of give us an overview of what you guys cover at Host Broadcast Services, or HBS?
Yeah, HBS is, I mean, fundamentally we are a project management company for that host broadcast major sporting events. With the client, we look to define their project, and then from that we make sure that we design it to the specifications, the latest broadcast technical innovations included wherever they need to be leveraged, and then deliver to that, on spec, on budget, on time. So it's define, design, deliver is kind of one of the mottos of the company. So we deliver services around the host broadcast that encompass live, non-live production, engineering, venue management, any construction that's needed, whether it's an international broadcast centre or at the venue. So now digital services, and then behind that is a lot of support services, not just to the HB operation in general, but to all the staff that work for us. So logistics, HR, legal, all make up part of the company, and obviously we also, on behalf of the client, look to manage the services for the broadcasters that are needed on these events, and provide them with all the latest information they need to kind of access and carry out those services.
Yeah, to the full scope.
Yeah.
Obviously, we've noticed Broadcast Academy and that as a part of HBS. So could you tell us a little bit more about the Broadcast Academy?
Yeah.
And what does that programme hope to achieve in the long run?
Yeah, sure, no problem. So Broadcast Academy was created by HBS to kind of share our knowledge and expertise, and also to try and leave a legacy in the countries where we've worked and operated. So over the years, it's been dedicated to training more seasoned broadcast professionals, but more recently, it's kind of opened up the virtual doors.
Yeah, a lot of that.
Younger generation of aspiring directors, replay operators, and the like. So I think as well, more recently, it's kind of recently launched a Project Access initiative. So that's to promote women in the sports broadcast industry. So making a long-term commitment to making the industry a more inclusive field.
No, it sounds really good. I can't wait to see what you guys do with it as well in the future.
Yeah, it's I think it's a real asset, obviously, to the company and the industry, and this year there's always new training models that are going out there, and a lot around the replay operations. So new sports outside of football, with covering rugby, with some expert directors. We're using a French director, Laurent Dome, for that course. He was one of our Rugby World Cup directors recently. obviously to continue the Project Access initiative to work and include more minorities as well.
Yes. No, sounds like really good stuff. Sounds like a great cause as well.
Mm-hmm.
Gareth, this is a question we tend to ask at the end of every episode. What do you see as the future for the broadcasting and media industry as a whole? And we usually ask guests to try and keep it to one word, and then obviously expand on this if possible.
I think one word would be digital.
Yes, 100%.
To expand on that, I mean, it's digital platforms that are going to enable direct consumer content, which I think in the way that media is consumed now is going to be very important. And I think trends are going that way, especially obviously since and then perhaps the pandemic has pushed that forward and accelerated it. So I think that is the future. You can't really kind of speak about this without not mentioning remote production in terms of where the industry was looking to develop over the next few years, perhaps with production in HDR, UHD. Perhaps that's actually had to go to one side, although it continues, and the focus I think for all of the big broadcasters and technical suppliers has been to accelerate their remote production capabilities. And obviously it's already in motion, but taking football for example, I think with the pandemic we're already seeing that these games are now being covered away from the venue, different roles, even the director, and a lot of the gallery teams are working remotely, and you're then having a team that includes obviously the camera operators and certain amount of technical staff at the venue. But that trend will obviously continue, and we will look to kind of implement that on events where necessary, and obviously where there's still that redundancy to make sure that there's no risk, because obviously everything still needs to be evaluated in a different way. There's things that you can put into practice on site. As soon as you remove it, then you need to know that it's going to work and that the connectivity is going to be safe. So yeah, slightly expanded answer on what you're answering, but yeah, my one word is digital, but then it's clearly
I think you've summed it up well there. I think 2020 has been a whirlwind of a year, and obviously now going into 2021, I think digital really does summarise it, to be honest, and for the future as well. Yeah, 100%. So just to end on then, Gareth, are there any exciting projects in the pipeline for HBS that you can talk to us about?
See, outside of the larger projects this year, obviously we had a lot of events that were postponed or cancelled. So some of those have moved into 2021. But one event that was always planned is the Gold Cup, the Football Gold Cup. That's going to happen in the United States this summer. And the other big HBS host broadcast project is going to be Roland Garros. So the French Tennis Open.
Yes.
Later this month. Sorry, not this month. Later this year. I mean, aside from the HBS projects, we're part of the Infront group. So we have a department of Infront Productions, and they have a number of projects that are kicking off this year. There's a remote production of the FIST Championships, and then there's the IIHF Hockey World Championships also in the spring. So yeah, a couple of big ones in there. Well, actually, in the first half of the year, most of this is. So
yeah, no, it's good stuff. It's just great to hear.
Going to keep us busy.
Yeah, it's great to hear that you guys are obviously busy, and that sport's just making a comeback as well. Because 2020 didn't look good at all.
Indeed, and I think there's obviously being embedded in the industry, we have colleagues, friends that have not been able to work, and there's been a lot of uncertainty. We've been in a very lucky and privileged position where the longer term projects have certainly enabled us to continue working as normal, but still seeing all of the cancellations and postponements around us, which is obviously going to cause a lot of uncertainty and anxiety in the industry, with the obvious reasons for the revenue that's connected with that. But yeah, it's making a comeback. I think there's ways to do that, and as we discussed with the remote production, and to see, it'd be great to see fans back in the stadium as soon as possible. But at least until then, we can hope to get pictures at least of the fans and watching at home.
So how can people get in touch with you and HBS if they want to find out more about anything you guys are up to?
On social media, there's the Twitter account, which is HBS_tweets. We're on LinkedIn, the HBS website as well. it's a good way to obviously get more detail on what the company does and services we offer. And just to say that, we're always recruiting for projects, long and short-term contracts. So don't hesitate to get in contact. And the email for that is info@hbs.tv.
Awesome. Sounds really good, Gareth. So thanks so much for coming on and answering the questions. It's been really insightful.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure, Neil. Thanks.